Jim.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, March 22nd, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So, what is happening on this wonderful Tuesday? We've got some coronavirus updates, current news from around the world, looking into the story of King Hezekiah, and looking back at Sunseem's first trial. All right, how are you guys doing today? Yes, I did say that we're going to look back at Sunseem's first trial, and there are a bunch of things that many people who are new may not know about it, but we have to know. Like this is something that all of us, if we want to understand God's deep Shimjung, we also have to take a look at what happened in that first one. A lot of people don't really know much about it, so I'm going to go over some small details and things that it'll help us to understand it at a much better level, okay? So I hope you guys have been having a good start of the week. It's already Tuesday, and really thankful for all you guys joining us here on the Morning Star Drive, so keep liking and commenting, and let's build the community here. Guys, I want you guys to comment and just talk about all the different things that are going on in your life, things that are good, things that are bad. It's open for all comments, so I'm just really hoping that that everyone will really be able to you know, just kind of enjoy this community more than anything else. Like I'm right now, because I'm doing a lot of projects on crypto, there's like all these Discord channels and people are really into this community. So I do think it's something that we can really think about also making this into a platform. And maybe later we can start a Discord channel too for everyone on the Morning Star Drive also. And you guys can talk about the suggestions and things you want to hear and stuff like that too. All right. So yeah, this is kind of I don't think it's controversial, but this is something it's happened like how many years ago? Sunseem's been out since 2018, which means that's 4 years. Like, wow, already 4 years. So we're looking 14 years ago. A lot of people may not know what happened, but you know, when you look at the Bible too, when you see what happened to Jesus, you get an account of all the different things that happened and all the accusations from the Bible. And I do think it's something that all of us need to know so we understand like the deep Shimjung of all this slander that comes against Sunseem. It is so, like if you saw some of these articles that were written later on that are more fair, you get to see what the real situation was and how much it was unfair and how much this burns God's heart, and you get to realize the deep Shimjung even more. So that will be the last segment for today. And of course, with this week's message, there was a section, a video in the Sunday message where we get to see all those great figures of God. Right, it was like Hezekiah and David, and all. Who else was there? There's Hezekiah, David, and Joseph. There was just a ton of people in there, right? Let me just check what Esther was in there too. Jesus was in there. Was Paul in there? I don't think Paul was there though. Right? Was he? No, it was like Hezekiah, David, Esther, Jesus. I think those are the four. There might have been a little bit more, right? But these are the people that were able to not sway, but to really acknowledge God's Shimjung. And then we can kind of look at the story to see exactly what happened. And, you know, even with Hezekiah, it's really interesting what happens after he makes another big mistake. And, you know, that kind of brings him to his demise, right? So it's kind of like a Josiah story. Well, it's better than Josiah's story, but I hope that you guys will enjoy these Bible stories and looking into the scriptures and stuff like that too. All right? So, yeah, tomorrow night. Today's Tuesday. So on Thursday night, the day after, we're going to have another awesome video on Espresso with Sky. Thank you guys so much for supporting. Personally, I'm going to be super honest with you guys. I really want the channel to blow up, but I am not desperate. I just want to get the content out, and I know that eventually when God opens the eyes of a lot of people, it's going to blow up. So super thankful for all you guys and your support, and really thankful that you guys are we're all able to kind of be in on this, get Sunseem's word out there into the world, all right? Sunday edition for this week, Rachel Tan from Malaysia. Great interview, a lot of people watching it. She is a campus member, she is young, and she is amazing. So go ahead, check out that story. Super fun, insightful interview, and hope you guys really enjoy it, all right? So let's get this show started with member artists from around the world on this awesome Tuesday. We're going to start off with that brand new song from the Sumney Boys in America. This song is Alone I Pray. This is a great song, one of my favorites already, so we're going to hear that one first. And then we have the second song, J Root from the Pink Music Associates in Korea with From Now and Forever. And last but not least, we'll have Renee live from Taiwan with her first original song that she made called I See.
Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees praying for you to always come through. No, I'm not slipping through. No, I'm not falling down. The only thing that's falling is my knees on the floor. I'm praying, Lord, will you give me strength? Lord, will you give me power? I can't do this myself, so bless me in the morning hours. All the demons test me, but they will never shake me. If I pray, they hit me. If I pray, you love me. Connected with you is the only thing that matters. And honestly, I couldn't be happier. While I'm praying on my knees, I trust you with all my heart. For you always come through. For myself, for my family, for myself alone I pray. Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees praying for you to always come through.
I pray to never just settle for good when great is available. Who's the mastermind behind this mind? I give all the credit to God, that's why I'm back. They mad that I made it, I know that the Satans, they hate it. I keep working hard just to make progress. Now I'm on 10, trust the process, ayy. Look at my efforts lately, I'm setting conditions daily. I'm praying on my knees, so bless me. Please bless me, please bless me. Tribulations always come and go, I will never stop, just always know your focus determines reality, stay solid, that's why I'm praying on my knees. I trust you with all my heart. For you to always come through. For myself, for my family, on myself alone I pray. Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees praying for you to always come through. SB.
It's been a long time we've been separated and staying apart. As you can see at last, it's the time we were waiting for. Every day, every night when I pray, when I sing a song, yeah, I made up my mind, I don't wanna lose you anymore. 수많은 시간을 참고 기다려왔잖아. 눈앞에 있는 그대 놓칠 순 없어 난. 간절한 이 마음 더 깊어지는 이 순간, 이젠 그대와 함께 사는 거야 from now.
Yeah, I remember back in the days. In deep sorrow I pray. 편지 한 장 그 안에 담긴 사연 힘겨운 하루에 작은 힘이 될 수 있다면 굳이 답장하지 않아도 난 괜찮아 주위 모든 게 그대가 되어 나에게 전하 구름과 햇살 그림자와 빗소리에 피어나 You and me another love story 수많은 시간을 참고 기다려왔잖아 눈앞에 있는 그대 놓칠 순 없어 난 간절한 희망 더 깊어지는 이 순간 이젠 그대와 함께 사는 거야 from now 그댄 어디쯤에 있을까 유난히 밝은 저 반달이 누운 곳에 그대 처음 반짝이던 마음이 다시금 빛날 때 가벼운 발걸음 어느새 그대 향해 넘어가는 달력에 숨이 넘어갈 듯 달려가네 앞서는 걱정을 뒤로 해 피곤해 지쳐있을 그땐 내가 필요해 기도해 그땐 이별의 하늘 위로 하며 슬퍼했지만 이제 양손을 하늘 위로 하고 소리쳐 난 행복한 사람 나의 영원한 행복은 그대가 내게 주니까 수많은 시간을 참고 기다려왔잖아 눈앞에 있는 그대 놓칠 순 없어 난 간절한 희망 더 깊어지는 이 순간 이젠 그대와 함께 사는 거야 from now Yeah, yeah, today's the day I missed you so much my darling 오래전부터 손꼽아 기다린 날이 내게 오다니 Is it a dream? No, it is real 당신이 자랑스러워 하실 내 모습 Yeah, 내가 준비한 작은 선물 아직 많이 부족하고 또 아쉬운 것도 우성이지만 이제 내 목소리를 고백하고 싶어 그대의 눈을 바라보며 이 노래 들려주고 싶어 Yeah 수많은 시간을 참고 기다려왔잖아 눈앞에 있는 그대 놓칠 순 없어 난 간절한 희망 더 깊어지는 이 순간 이젠 그대와 함께 사는 거야 from now From now From now and forever
我看见主的模样 So alive, so alive 我听见主的声音 So clear, so clear 他的爱融化我心使我灵魂安然平静那话语充满能力使我能看见改变的神迹多希 全沉浸，主话语全是不必，使我能体会神爱的旨意。多幸运，在新时代里与主一起经历风雨，一生用尽真心，持守我对天的约定。属天的路我越走越确信，感谢圣灵强烈引导我心灵，当代有主同在宝贵时机，我会怀抱感谢忠诚实践到底，主啊我爱你。多幸运，在新时代里与主一起经历风雨，一生用尽真心，持守我对天的约定。多幸运，在新时代里与主一起经历风雨，一生用尽真心，持守我对天的约定。我看见主的模样，so 我来，so 我来。
And that is Renee Lai from Taiwan with I See. Before that was J Root from PMA in Korea with From Now and Forever, and that featured artist of the day, of course, that is Some D Boys from America, new track that dropped on 3/16, that is Alone I Pray. All right, guys, so let's get into some news going on around the world. This is very important for all of us so we can pray for the proper topics, especially when we're talking about Ukraine, Russia, and, we need to pray knowing the situation really well. All right, so let's start off with some coronavirus updates, and yes, even though coronavirus is in the back of our mind, it is getting a little bit hairy right now, especially in Asia, in Europe. But let's take a look at the stats first. Since the beginning of the coronavirus, so it's been over 2 years now, there have been 471.6 million cases with over 6.1 million deaths. Mortality rate remains at 1.29%. Top 5 countries going by daily death rates, we have Russia on top, 434 deaths and 31,000 cases. Now, 2, 3, and 4 are really shocking. Up to number 2 is Korea. South Korea, 327 deaths and 334,000 cases. Hong Kong's in third with 246 deaths and 14,000 cases, and the Philippines jumps to number 4 with 240 deaths and 562 cases. And of course, when you look at Philippines, if it's 240 deaths, 562 cases, that's like a 50%. That's like 45% death rate in a day. But of course, I'm pretty sure that all the testing hasn't been done. There's no way it's going to be like at a 45% death rate. That's just the numbers that have been collected so far. Mexico in 5th with 141 deaths and 4,100 cases. So that leads us to North America, where I'm at right now. The U.S., they're not even in the top 5. 88 deaths and 5,900 cases. And then Canada, only 3 deaths and 1,600 cases. And that's kind of why over here, it's almost back to normal. The only thing they're checking is if you're vaccinated. No masks or anything needed over here. But what's even crazier is, not even crazier, but I think within the next week and a half, or it's next week. Yeah, next week, you don't even need to check vaccine passports anymore. So that's kind of how far it's going well here in Canada, and I hope it remains that way too, more than anything else. Okay, so let's take a look at the top 3 news going around the world, and of course, we're going to start off with an update on the Russia-Ukraine war. So Kyiv, the capital city, 8 people are reported dead in shelling on a residential area and shopping center. The mayor of Kyiv announces a curfew in the city from 8 p.m. local time on Monday to 7 a.m. local time on Wednesday. So Russian naval forces also have been shelling some residential buildings on the edge of Odessa, and that's another port city that is very, very important to the Ukraine, and that is their only way for them to get out into the ocean. So this is a very key place, and they've been shelling not just military structures but residential buildings. And this is what the Ukrainian authorities are saying. Ukraine ignores Russia's demand. It gives up the city of Mariupol, saying there's no question of any surrender. And Russia had offered to give civilians and fighters safe passage out of the city as long as they give up their weapons. Now, Ukraine's president has accused Russia of war crimes in Mariupol, where heavy fighting has now reached the city center. An estimated 90% of the city's buildings have been damaged or destroyed, and 300,000 people remain trapped. And those of you guys don't know also, I believe now there's been around 10 million people in the Ukraine that have been deposed, meaning they're out of, they're either left their country or they had to move to another region not away from their homes because of the heavy fighting. So that's a really, really big number. Also, there's one thing we do need to know is a Russian invasion. It has remained largely stalled across all their lines of advance, with troops not having moved any further toward Kyiv since last week. And this is from the U.S. senior defense officials. The Russians have launched more than 1,100 missiles, but may be facing some inventory issues, the official said. Some missiles have failed to launch. Some have failed to explode, the officials said. And the U.S. is unable to confirm or refute Russia's claim that it used a hypersonic missile. The official said, adding it wasn't clear why the missile would have been needed, but that the Russians may have been running low on precision-guided missiles or have wanted to send a message. So the official said there had been an increase in naval activity in the Black Sea, which was believed to include some shelling around the port of Odessa, but this did not mean an assault on the city was imminent, the officials said. Right? So that's kind of the update you have of the Ukraine-Russia war. We're going to go over to China, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this airline called China Eastern, but a plane carrying 132 people crashes in Guangxi Hills. A Chinese passenger plane with 132 people on board has crashed in a forested hillside in southern China. The China Eastern Airlines Boeing 737-800 was flying from Kunming to Guangzhou when it plunged to earth in Guangxi province and caught fire. Number of casualties and reasons for the crash are not yet known. Rescuers have seen no signs of survivors. Chinese airlines generally have a good safety record. The last major accident took place 12 years ago. The crash has caused shock in China, where President Xi Jinping has ordered an immediate investigation to determine the cause. China Eastern Airlines has grounded all its 737-800s. Flight tracking data suggested the plane lost height rapidly from its cruising altitude before plummeting to the ground. More than 600 emergency responders said to be at the crash site, and firefighters reached the scene first and managed to extinguish a blaze in the hills caused by the crash. Now, footage taken by local villagers and shared on Chinese social media and by state broadcasters showed fire and smoke from the crash, with plane debris on the ground. Air safety and aviation standards in China have improved vastly in recent decades, following a series of accidents in the 1990s, and crashes such as this are now very rare. The country's last major plane accident was in August 2010, when a flight from Harbin crashed in northeast Yichun during foggy weather, killing 42 people. Flight tracking sites report the plane was in the air for just over an hour and was nearing its destination when it went down in Wuzhou, a verdant, hilly area prone to mixed weather at this time of year as China enters its annual flood season. The weather was cloudy, but visibility was reported to have been good at the time of the crash. The plane dropped thousands of meters in 3 minutes, the flight tracker data showed. According to the data, the plane was cruising at 29,100 feet, but 2 minutes and 15 seconds later, it was recorded at 9,075 feet. So that's like over 20,000 feet. It dropped in 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and that was the last source information on the flight that ended at 2:22 local time. So that is unfortunate. Our prayers go out to all the families of those 132 people. Well, we're not sure actually how many casualties there are yet, but that's not it's unfortunate and something that we really need to comfort God's heart in also. Last but not least on the world news, we're going to go into a little bit of COVID, but East Asia sees COVID-19 explosion. So we saw that in the top 5 daily death rates, right? So China's zero COVID policy is facing its stiffest challenge after a rapid rise in cases caused by the Omicron variant that has forced authorities to take draconian control measures. Domestically acquired COVID-19 infections jumped from 175 on March 7th to 3,507 on March 14th. So that's in 7 days, in 1 week, it jumped by 3,300 cases. Now, asymptomatic infections, which China tracks separately, surged as well. The government has put 37 million people in the southern city of Shenzhen and the northeastern province of Jilin under lockdown orders, with many elsewhere facing travel and other restrictions. Now, public health experts worry the increases might overwhelm the country's health system, as it already has in Hong Kong. South Korea and Vietnam, which managed to keep cases very low during the first 2 years of the pandemic, have also seen explosions due to Omicron, with South Korea now reporting more than 300,000 cases daily and Vietnam more than 200,000. So many European countries also that recently relaxed or abandoned control measures are recording COVID-19 rebounds as well, with double-digit percentage increases in infections over the past 2 weeks. So yes, infections are going up, but of course the big one for us is, are the vulnerable protected? And more importantly, what is the death rate, right? If the death rate's relatively low, like even when it comes to like a flu rate, then, we can see that it's kind of normalized more than anything else, but I hope more than anything else, it doesn't get really bad. All right. So that's the top 3 news in the world. We're going to go into some sporting news. Top 3 news in sports. We have the NHL. And yes, I'm only going to report about the Vancouver Canucks because they are my team, with only like less than 20 games left, and we're going into the playoffs soon. And Buffalo, I watched the game last night. We lost again. We lost to Buffalo 3-2, but thank God it was in overtime, so we picked up at least 1 point. Winnipeg, who is right underneath us, they won. They defeated Chicago 6-4, and Dallas, who's above us, they won 3-2 against Washington. So what are the standings right now? So the 3 teams that are in the playoffs, well, you have Edmonton in the Pacific Division. They're third with 74 points. And then in the wild card, you have Nashville and Vegas with 76 and 72 points. So if we want to just get to the wild card, we need 72 points. However, we have one team in between us in Vegas. So Dallas is already at 71 points, which is 3 points ahead of both us and Winnipeg. So we actually, in order for us to be comfortable, we need to catch up to Edmonton, right? And that is 6 points away, 3 wins. That's hoping that they lose 3 and we win 3. Right? Oh no, we're hoping they lose 4 and we win 3, and then we'll be above them in the Pacific Division. But man, it's getting really, really tight, so I'm getting really nervous about this, but we'll see what happens, right? In second news, we'll go to the NBA. Not many teams that are really exciting, but Phoenix Suns, number 1 team in the league, defeat the Sacramento Kings in overtime, 127-124. Devin Booker, 31 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Boston Celtics defeat the Denver Nuggets, 124-104. Jason Tatum, 30 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. Jokic, the one who's leading the pack when it comes to the MVP of the season, 23 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. Toronto defeats the Philadelphia 76ers 93-88. This is their 6th road game win in a row, and that's a record for them. James Harden, 17 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists in a losing effort. San Antonio Spurs defeat the Golden State Warriors, who is still without Steph Curry over an injury, 110-108. And of course, like I said, we are getting into March Madness. This is the big NCAA men's basketball tournament. We're at the Sweet 16. It's been finally finalized in the Sweet 16. In the East, it's UCLA will be playing against North Carolina, and Purdue will be playing St. Peter's. In the West, Gonzaga will play Arkansas, and Duke will play Texas Tech. And this is Coach Krzyzewski's last year as head coach of Duke. I really hope that they make a really, really good run too. In the South, Arizona plays against Houston, and Villanova is playing against Michigan. And that's kind of like the one bracket. Well, actually, the West bracket is probably the one that's running the closest to what they should be. Like, it's 1-4 versus 2-3, which is the way it should be, right? The South is not too bad because you have 1 versus 5, and then Villanova is 2, and they're playing Michigan, who is 11th. I'm really going for Michigan, too, because of their coach. And then in the Midwest, you have Kansas, number 1, against Providence. So I'm only going for Providence because of their name. And, of course, we have Miami playing Iowa State, and that's 10 versus 11, so that's quite interesting over there, too. So that will all be happening next week. All right, so that means we're going to get, that is the top news in sports, and also the top news around the world, and, of course, the coronavirus updates, which means we're going to get into the golden time. And yes, we want to play some songs that we can do some praise and worship together. And I hope that especially this week we have to know the Lord's God, the Holy Spirit, and the Lord's Shimjung more than anything else. We're going to start off, we have fulfilled the purpose of love. And then everything that I am is because of your love. And then we'll end things off with a really deep Shimjung song that Sunsi made called For Whom Did I Come? So as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy Trinity.
I'm happy if you're happy. The Trinity are happy too. That is all that matters. Since we found the path of life, now we can say time can keep flowing away. I'm on the way to heaven. We have fulfilled God's purpose of eternal love. In that golden heaven above, from the sunrise to the sunset, even as the moon begins to rise, even as the stars light up the night, we should go on serving God, serving the Holy Spirit. You and I should spend our days like this. I'm on the way to heaven. We have fulfilled God's purpose of eternal love. In that golden heaven above, from the sunrise to the sunset, even as the moon begins to rise, even as the stars light up the night, we should go on serving God, serving the Holy Spirit. You and I should spend our days like this. Here in this world of love, we live faithfully, believing without regret. Life is great, meaningful. Life is awesome when we live this way. Could I ever express this feeling in my heart? that cannot be expressed with words alone. Oh Lord, I'm truly thankful for your love. I was anxious, alone, and wandering in darkness. I was not even sure if I could live again. Your love that cannot be expressed with words alone. That precious love of yours has saved my life. Lord, you have always prayed for me. You have comforted my heart. You've led me with the perfect word of truth. Now the time's come, the breath of life from God has entered me. I'm resurrecting higher. Everything that I am is from your love. Everything that I am is from your prayer. I will give my everything. My life belongs to you. My Lord, I love you so. Lord, you held on to me with this one promise. Since I've come to life, I'll surely save you. Your love that cannot be expressed with words alone. That precious love of yours has saved my life. We're flying higher than before. Since we passed the darkest time, the history of blessings has begun. Now the time's come, the breath of life from God has entered me. I'm resurrecting higher. Everything that I am is from your love. Everything that I am is from your prayer. I will give my everything. My life belongs to you. My Lord, I love you so. Everything that I am is from your love. Everything that I am is from your prayer. Until the end, I'll take this path. My heart will never change. My Lord, I love you so. Until the end, I'll take this path. My heart will never change. My Lord, I love you so.
I've come into this dismal world. Whom do you think I came here for? Whom do you think I struggled for? For whom does the bell toll? It was for you, you believe, you who love me and follow. I've come into this dismal world. Whom do you think I came here for? Whom do you think I struggled for? For whom does the bell toll? It was for you, you believe, you who love me and follow. No hesitation, no doubt, no thinking whether I should take action. Rather I swung the sword fearlessly. No hesitation, in one single strike. From the east to the west, from the north to the south, fast as lightning. Heaven's sword, massive and mighty, great and low. With one strike, I swung this great sword of the word. You have to know, you have to realize, follow me and believe. God has surely sent the Lord. It is I. Quickly, you must believe. Follow, for the time is passing. Once the time has passed by, it will never come back. You must believe the Lord has come again. Time that's past is already dead now. You must make history that will remain. Let's create what's eternal. The Lord our God never rests his gaze, but with fiery eyes of love, he watches over all of us. I love you all, so I ask, please fulfill my will.
And that was For Whom Did I Come? That is coming from the Lord's perspective and his point of view of how much he just came for us, and he swung without any hesitation so that all of us could be saved. All right, so that's For Whom Did I Come? Before that, Everything I Am is Because of Your Love. Great song from Pastor Joan. And of course, We Have Fulfilled the Purpose of Love. All right, so let's get now into the word study for today. And of course, every single Tuesday, we go into the Bible itself. And of course, lately, over the last 2-3 weeks, we haven't really had any scriptures from the Bible, but we do have a lot of stories that come out of it. And this week, I wanted to go over the story of Hezekiah. A lot of the other stories like David and stuff like that, we already know the stories pretty well. But like the story of Hezekiah is not as common as the Esthers and Davids and Joseph and Moses and Jesus and Paul. Like he's not as common, okay? So we're going to go into the story of King Hezekiah, all right? So let's get into it. So one thing we need to know about King Hezekiah, firstly, his name means God has strengthened, okay? And he was a king which was directly in contrast to his father. Okay, his father was King Ahaz, and he was wicked, okay? evil, idolatrous, wicked, and during the reign of Ahaz, his father, the people of Israel said they feared God, but simultaneously they practiced idolatry. So Hezekiah was the 13th successor of David, reigning in Judah's southern kingdom, and he reigned for 29 years, and that's somewhere in the time of like 715 BC to 686 BC, and he began at the age of 25, so really young. So if you guys think about this, what were you guys doing at 25 years old? Or some of you are going to become 25 soon. How many of you were kings or queens? And the answer is probably none of us, right? So his reign began in the 3rd year of Hoshea's reign over the northern kingdom of Israel and Samaria, and it coincided with the ministry of 2 of God's prophets, both Isaiah and Micah. All right, so Hezekiah's reign as a king, his prophets at that time, it was Isaiah, right? And then Micah was up in the north. So what reforms came under King Hezekiah? So that's the big question we have. How good, what did he do in his life? So for the most part, King Hezekiah faithfully walked with God, right? And that's why even in the Bible, it says there was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. So a little bit of an exaggeration because, he's not quite King David, right? But he was compared to King David. Right? So after his wicked father's reign, Hezekiah committed himself to set things right again in Judah. King Ahaz nailed Jerusalem's temple doors shut, but Hezekiah reopened the temple and cleansed it. He destroyed Judah's idols, pagan temples, and altars, and he reestablished worship, reinstated the Levitical priesthood, and set up contributions for temple worship. Now he sanctified the temple vessels that had been desecrated, but destroyed the bronze snake that Moses made because God's people had turned it into an idol. Now Hezekiah also reinstituted the sacrificial Passover celebration as a national holiday. So that he almost sounds like David and sounds like Josiah in his good days, right? So as Hezekiah restored temple worship and reformed Judah, revival came to God's people. They returned to God, his word, and the Old Testament blood sacrifice for sin. And God rewarded and prospered him personally too. And if you look in the book of 2 Kings with his stories, both in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles, but in 2 Kings chapter 18, it talks about him as a righteous king who held fast to the Lord and did not stop following him. He kept all the commands of the Lord that Moses had given, and the Lord was with him, and he was successful in whatever he undertook. So it kind of shows you what type of king he was. Now, how was Hezekiah when crisis came about? Did he leave God or did he stick to God even more? So Hezekiah led Judah through several crisis situations. Like he threw off the Assyrian yoke and defeated the Philistines. And during his reign, the ruthless Assyrian Empire conquered many nations. But with foresight, Hezekiah decided to fortify Jerusalem against siege. And he fortified the city walls, expanded his military, and built a 1,750-foot-long tunnel to provide a secret water supply. Hezekiah's tunnel still exists under the city of David, excavated by modern archaeologists, so they know that it actually happened. Now, in 701 BC, the Assyrians under King Sennacherib invaded Judah for the first time. So they went and they marched against Jerusalem. The Assyrians had already conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. Now Hezekiah tried to appease the Assyrian king Sennacherib by giving him silver and gold from his own treasures and the temple. But this appeasement didn't last long, and the Assyrians openly taunted and defied Judah's God, likening him to the powerless gods in nations they already had overcome. Now Sennacherib told the people Hezekiah was lying to them about being able to deliver them from his hand. Now, in the face of these threats, Hezekiah grieved, but he knew where to turn, and he sought wisdom from the prophet Isaiah. So Isaiah told him Sennacherib would hear a rumor and return to his own land, where he would die by the sword. And as Sennacherib continued to defy God, he sent a letter to Hezekiah. Now, Judah's king once again returned to the temple to pray, and as he spread the Assyrian's letter before the Lord, he prayed a humble, powerful prayer of faith, asking for deliverance so all the kingdoms of earth would know that the Lord alone is God. And Hezekiah recognized it was not his own reputation that was at stake, but it was God's. So when you look at this too, this is one of those recognizing God's shimjung. He recognized it was not just about him, but he recognized this person is coming against God and blaspheming God. And Hezekiah prayed humbly at the temple before God. And he says, God, this is I can't imagine how you're feeling, what your deep 심정이 is right now, where this human being thinks he is greater than you. And he realized that it wasn't his reputation, it was God's reputation at stake. So he recognized, like this week's message said. Then a second answer came from Isaiah, that Assyria would never enter Jerusalem. So the city would be spared, and the Lord kept this promise to protect Jerusalem, and the angel of the Lord killed 185,000 Assyrians that night. And those who remained, including Sennacherib, withdrew in defeat to Nineveh the next morning. The Lord brought the victory, and Sennacherib, as he worshipped in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons killed him by the sword, as Isaiah had prophesied. So that is quite amazing too, right? But what Sunsi was talking about the other day, this week's message is not really talking about that prayer. It's a different one, right? Sometime later, what happened? King Hezekiah gets terribly sick. And he was so ill that Isaiah came to him and told him to get his life in order because death was imminent. That's how bad it was, right? So what happened was Hezekiah, weeping with his face toward a wall, Hezekiah asked God to be merciful. He reasoned with the Lord, reminding him of all the good he had accomplished in faith and obedience to him during his reign. God answered the king's prayers swiftly, and before Isaiah left Hezekiah's home, the Lord instructed him to tell the king his prayer was heard, which is quite amazing, right? So Isaiah said Hezekiah would go to the temple 3 days later and would live an additional 15 years. This kind of sounds like with Sunsin's mom, right? And after Isaiah applied to a simple poultice, right? Do you guys know what that means? It is P-O-U, how do you spell that? P-O-U-L-T-I-C-E, right? And so he says, after Isaiah applied a simple poultice, which is like a soft, heated, and sometimes medicated mass spread on cloth and applied to sores or other lesions, right? So Isaiah applied this poultice, and then the king recovered. And in response to this healing, Hezekiah offered his testimony of faith and a psalm of thanksgiving. Now, these additional years did not end up being a season of blessing for Hezekiah, though, because not long after his healing, he made a really, really bad mistake. So what was this tragic mistake that Hezekiah made? Basically, Hezekiah himself basically kind of indicates the ongoing failure of God's people to trust the Lord, right? Basically, after all this happened, he doesn't trust the Lord. So his heart became proud and he failed to respond to the kindness God had shown him. Basically, so what happened at this point? What was a big mistake? Through a sad turn of circumstances, instigated by Hezekiah's foolish choice, God poured out his indignation on Hezekiah's kingdom. When the Babylonians heard about the king's sickness, Marduk-Baladan, who is the son of the king of Babylon, sent letters and a gift by envoys to Hezekiah. Now, Hezekiah had great wealth and honor from the Lord, and God had given him great success, but God decided to test his servant. That's what it says in 2 Chronicles 32, to know everything that was in his heart. So Hezekiah failed that test. So in pride, what happened? The king showed Marduk-Baladan's ambassadors all the precious things in Jerusalem, his personal treasures, the riches of the city, and everything in the arsenal. There was nothing in his palace or in all his kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. Okay? So hearing of this, Isaiah went to Hezekiah and rebuked him for the foolish pride that endangered Jerusalem and God's people. So the prophet then made a terrible prophecy or prediction. Everything Hezekiah had shown the Babylonians would be taken from him, carried off to Babylon. Even the king's descendants would be taken to serve as eunuchs in the Babylonian palace. Isaiah's prophecy came true during King Zedekiah's reign. The king should have been horrified by the prophecy, but his response showed another fault. Hezekiah only was concerned about peace and safety during his own lifetime. So can you imagine his response? Kind of, we think about response like 3:16, we talked about this yesterday, right? Like people didn't really respond to something so, like in the proper way, where he should have gone to his knees and prayed again, but instead he's like, it's okay, well, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, so that was another fault that he had. So in the 15 years after his illness, Hezekiah fathered the heir to his throne, Manasseh. Now, though Hezekiah had led the nation in reform and revival, his indifference for the future had terrible consequences, and Manasseh would be incredibly evil and undo most of his father's reforms. So he brought immorality back to Judah, promoted the worship of pagan gods, and Jewish tradition says he even may have murdered Hezekiah's longtime friend Isaiah. Right? We're not sure yet, but he might have killed the prophet, right? So that is kind of the basic story of Hezekiah, and I hope it's something that you guys really enjoy, these types of things, and learning about these biblical figures and books in the Bible too. And I hope that we can continue to do this on every Tuesday for like this Bible word study. Okay, so that is the word study for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed the story of King Hezekiah more than anything else. And I picked a song that kind of talks about this, which is a story of heartache. And this is, Tuesdays is always a Korean song, and this Korean song is from an R&B artist named Huisung. He's someone that I actually listened to when he first came out in 2002, I believe, when I was in Korea. And he started to get really, really popular at that time. And that song was called 안 되나요. Right? But this one is it's like the heartbreak story, right? And that's what we just heard right now with King Hezekiah. So this is Huisung with the heartbreak story.
세상에 가장 예쁜 거짓말 goodbye goodbye 가슴 찢겨도 뱉는 그 말 goodbye goodbye 좋은 안녕이란 말도 안 되는 그 말 사랑한 만큼 믿었던 만큼 아파 네가 너무 미워서 너무 슬퍼서 아파 이게 이별이잖아 좋을 리가 없잖아 그래도 goodbye 안녕 미워도 너는 내 사랑을 알려준 첫사랑 그런 너를 보내는 한 남자의 거친 너 나만 느끼던 너의 체온도 goodbye goodbye 나만 맞추던 너의 입술도 goodbye goodbye 너무 절망스러워 그래도 널 위해서 남자로서 꼭 해야 하는 말 goodbye goodbye 마지막으로 너를 힘껏 안고서 goodbye goodbye 늘어난 테이프처럼 무겁게 더듬대며 행복해 goodbye 안녕 미워도 너는 내 사랑을 알려준 첫사랑 그런 너를 보내는 한 남자의 거친 너 goodbye goodbye 안녕 좋은 사람 만나 뻔한 드라마 속 이별 장면을 뺏긴다 말이 좋은 안녕이지 결국은 누군가에게 뺏긴다 부모리는 아이처럼 우리가 낳은 사랑은 버려진다 그래 이별은 너와 나의 책임이야 사랑 앞에 우린 죄인이야 울지마 바보야 나 정말 괜찮아 어떻게든 살아 행복하게 만남 사랑 추억 이별 참 고마웠었어 그동안 이를 악물고 너를 보낼게 어떻게든 너를 잊을게 우리 둘이서 만든 가슴 시린 이야기 안녕 미워도 너는 내 사랑을 알려준 첫사랑 처음 빚어 마지막 너를 위한 거지만 goodbye goodbye
And that was Huisung from Korea with the Heartbreak Story. And you can kind of feel it in the music too, but it's a really cool R&B story with a rap in the middle also. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Okay, so we're going to kind of get into like this little bit of a highlight today because we're going to talk about the very first trial. Okay, so a lot of us know that there was an announcement on the Friday prayer meeting from Providence Defense. And of course, there are people that are slandering Sunsim again and making accusations, kind of like they did 14 years ago for his first trial. And on they had a media conference on 316 live on YouTube. And like I said, I caught a little bit of it, didn't really listen to it because it's supposed to be a day of celebration. But I just wanted to check how many people were watching. It was like 275, which is like zero. Like that means, you know, Korea is a place where gossip spreads. And if it's something really, you know, if it spreads really fast, then you're going to have like, it's basically based on gossip, right? Which means that there would have been hundreds of thousands on there if it caught on, but you know that nothing caught on because there's only 275 people watching more than anything else. And I think they did probably did a little bit clip or review on it in the news and stuff like that too. And of course, we heard there was a member from Hong Kong, another one from Australia. You know, there was like you know, sexual problems with the blessed family or with like bisexual stuff too. And we're just listening to this type of thing. And, you know, I think those two were the only ones that really showed up at the interview. I didn't really watch anything. I didn't really listen to it either. But, you know, it's quite interesting to hear all these things coming out, and we get kind of more to understand the root of how things were happening. And I am super thankful to Providence Defense for their transparency, because I think it's very important for all of us to, you know, to at least know what's going on. The worst thing that can happen is like, you know, like people confront you like, oh, I have no idea. Then it kind of feels like we're blindly believing more than anything else. Like if we want to understand Shimjung really well, it's kind of like when Sunsim talked about praying for the Ukraine-Russia crisis. You need to pray while knowing, right? How can you know the Shimjung if you don't really know what's happening or what's going on? So I know that a lot of people have only been watching. I know I've come recently to they came after 2010. Right? So if you come after 2010, you know, 2009, 2010, a lot of us may not have even heard what actually happened during the trial and stuff like that too. Right? So here's a couple things that we do need to know. And the reason why I bring up the first trial is because that's one of the reasons why, for me, is just like, oh, this is one of those bogus things again. Because the same person who was kind of the ringleader of the first trial is the same person ringleading this second group of people that are doing the exact same thing. Okay? And this is why I'm talking a little bit more about this, because we need to know what that other trial was like and how unfair it was. If you want to know deep Shimjung, when you listen to these like 5-6 points that we really need to understand, we're going to know that, oh, okay, so this is why it was so unfair back then, right? A lot of time, I know a lot of people in the past, when they listen to the trial and all these other different things, they just say it's unfair, like, oh, it was unfair, but no one knows any of the details. So it kind of sounds dumb. Doesn't it kind of sound dumb that we say it's unfair, but we know nothing about the trial? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't really make any sense that it doesn't really make any sense that we're calling the trial unfair and yet we know nothing about the trial itself. Okay, so that's why I want to talk about this. 14 years ago, 2008, 2009 is where that trial happened. And my reference I'm using is going to be from an investigative journalist named Moon Il-suk, right? And he is someone who's been, even to the point of the trial, this person, non-Christian, non-Providence member, has been investigating this story for 11 years to the point, right? So that means like until like 2010, 2011, when this publication came out in a monthly magazine called Civil Government, right? It came out in this monthly, so this is a legit thing. Okay, so the interesting thing is the name of this article is called "Why is JMS President Jung Myung-suk Carrying the Cross?" Right? And this is from a monthly magazine in Korea called Civil Government. And basically, it's reporting about this president. It's talking about Sunsim in prison. 10-year sentence with a decision of the Supreme Court, which was upheld, which was upholding the decision of the lower court. Okay? And basically, in the article, it's saying that many voices are saying the trial was unfair and should be retried. Okay, so through this article and this investigative journalist who went to the police stations, who went to all the different things to check out if everything that was said was true. Okay, And they're going to point out 5 to 6 different things that we need to understand. Okay, so we're going to get into this. So the motivation to write the article this person wrote was not something that just came along recently. This active journalist who's been following this case for the past 11 years has been frequenting police stations since 1995. Okay, since 1995. All right, so let's go into the 5-6 problems that I think there's like 6 problems we're going to take a look at when it comes to this whole situation. So let's take a look at the first problem that was found, and this was in 1999. Okay, there was intense public interest in the organization, CGM, because of the ongoing media coverage. So at that time, there was a certain broadcasting company that aired this so-called program that says Ms. Huang abduction scandal. So claiming that some of the leaders of Providence kidnapped this woman, right, who is one of the church members. And what this investigative journalist did, they went to the police station. They went and looked at all the writings and all the documents, right? And when they looked at the original document, it was not abduction or kidnapping, but it was reported as simple assault case. So you guys gotta think about this. Simple assault is not even like beating someone up, right? This is simple assault, like maybe grabbing their hand too hard or something along this line. It was simple assault, and that is much different than kidnapping and abduction. Two different, and the charges are different, right? Penalties are different with simple assault and kidnapping. And after verifying all the facts, this person wrote an article in a police journal, okay? So after writing this article in the police journal, what happened was a person that this person is going to just refer to as an informer called her up, right? And basically, this is the person that plays the role of filing complaints on behalf of the plaintiffs behind the scenes, right? And, he thought to himself, why, what does that have to do with me? And he protested vehemently with very upset what this person reported, that it was a simple assault case and not a kidnapping. And the way this person complained was, why did you describe a kidnapping case as a simple assault case, right? And basically, this investigative reporter said, because I verified the investigation details from the Chunan police station, and explained that the article was written based on facts. And, yeah, but they, and then of course they were gonna go meet up in person, but this person did not show up. So there's some of these problems that are coming up about when it comes to public opinion. Right? So when it's written in an article that, there's this problem in this Providence organization, they said there was an abduction or kidnapping. Now, can you imagine the difference if it just said a simple assault case because they grabbed the hand too hard? You know what I mean? So you see, it's very sensationalized. Second problem, these are all leading up to the trial itself too, is that there's a lot of distorted facts in the media's reporting. Okay, so one of the media's broadcasts said that, from 1999, all these broadcasts came out, said that Sun Sing-nim is a leader who has sexual problems. Okay, so that's what it actually said in the broadcast, right, in the program. Now, basically what happened was the media took an excerpt from a 1995 Sunday sermon entitled "The Life of Thanksgiving." So what happened was the media, right, they took this excerpt from that Sunday sermon and modulated Sun Sing-nim's voice in the part where he says, the tithe of life is to evangelize 1 person out of 10, right? And to make it, so they modulated the voice to make it difficult to clearly hear what he says, and then they added the subtitle that read, instead of evangelize 1 person out of 10, right? To tithe of life is to evangelize 1 person out of 10. Instead, it says evangelize 1 woman. And that was aired instead. So imagine you modulate the voice so you can't really hear it. And in the subtitle, it says 1 woman. In Korean, it's written 1 woman. So this quote inevitably made the viewers think that Sun Sing was a leader with sexual problems. And furthermore, and even then, honestly, it's kind of weird because even if he said that, wouldn't people be like, oh, that's interesting? Like, why would you even think sexual problems just because even if he said evangelize 1 woman? Even if he did, why would that come to sexual problems, right? So what's even worse is when the media aired the footage of the services or events of the organization, and even though both males and females are shown in the original video, the media edited the scenes so that only females would be visible. So in this way, the media gave the audience an impression that Sunsteam was a religious leader who dealt only with females. Now, for all of you guys here, everyone, like all of you out there listening to this podcast, think about it carefully. Is there anything like that at all? Really? And the answer is, we've seen Sunsteam. Is he only interacting with female? No, right? There's male and female. Look at your churches, the way it's run. So this is kind of showing a very unfavorable, showing an unfavorable image of Sunsteam, but this is done on purpose, right? What happened there? Number one is modulating his voice and putting a subtitle that was untrue, because we have the original, and when you hear the original, obviously it's not talking about that. Second thing was, all the events that all the footage of their services and events would edit out the males, so only women were in the videos. So there's another problem. So you see that this is a serious problem by the media. Third point we're going to get into, right, is the outcome of the media's biased report, which was found to be legally wrongful at that time. So this is a good thing. So basically the investigative reporter is a male, right? So to the biased report, the court eventually issued a decision of the advice of peaceful settlement, right? So we basically took this media to court saying, this is wrong, right? How can you edit and do all these bad things? But when you look at the biased report, the court eventually sided with us. So the court ordered 3 things to happen. Number one is the media cannot use one-sided material provided by the informer or others, right? So the people who are giving the information to them. Secondly, the second rule that was the judgment in our favor, the media must inform the organization 48 hours before broadcasting. And number 3 is the media must guarantee 5% of the broadcasting time to the church so that their rebuttal will also be aired, right? And there's a fourth one too. Basically is, if they don't give the 5%, the media must pay damages in the amount of $30,000 for every violation they do, right? And the court decision acknowledging that the media made the mistake. The media made biased reporting. And it was, but here's the interesting part. Even though the court sided with us, there was no reports about what just happened, right? So viewers in Korea had no idea we won this court case. But at the same time, Sunsteam, who was already branded a criminal by public opinion and a sexual offender, continued to be cut to pieces at the basically cut to pieces by the media constantly because of this public opinion. Okay, so we see that everything's leading up to this point right here. So fourth point that differs from all the other reporters from this investigative journalist is the press conference that was held with 4 women who claimed to be sexually victimized. So there's 4 women that came against Sunsteam who claimed to be sexually victimized. And basically on April 18th, 2006, the informer, the person who's leading all this, held a press conference in which he made the 4 women who claimed to be sexually victimized speak, right? Kind of like exactly what happened on 3/16. Exact same thing. When the world was about, basically at that time, all the news about Sunsteam was kind of going away, but this conference basically refreshed viewers' memory of them. And that's what's exactly happening right now. 10 years in prison, comes out for 4 years, nothing really happening, and now, once again, this guy wants to remind the world who who Sunsteam is, right? And just to get that image back out. So basically, the journalists wanted to hear the position of this informer who declared that he was working for justice. But in the conference, there was something shocking that was disclosed. Okay? Basically, this person found out that he added that the informer was the person who's in charge of it was demanding $2 million to drop the case. Okay? So basically, all this stuff is coming up, and then the person, the ringleader, says, give me $2 million and I'll drop the case. And upon hearing this, a reporter from another media figured out that there was a problem with the press conference and stopped his coverage of the conference because of the action of the informer, the person in charge, the ringleader. Other reporters came to know the fact later, also began doubting the credibility, the informer who was leading this anti-Sunsenim event, right? So that's why, like, even reporters were like going, something's wrong. So this person's doing all this hoopla, and he's doing it for justice, yet he's requesting $2 million to drop the case. Okay, so there's another problem, right? So if it was really for justice, why would you drop it for $2 million? Oh, I'm in here because I'm here to do it for justice. But this ringleader at one point basically said, hey, if you give me $2 million, I'll stop everything. I'll stop everything. And we didn't give it to him because we know that it's all wrong. Which leads us to the fifth point. And this is another reason why this investigative journalist believes that the trial of Sunsenim went wrong is especially when it comes to the sexual assault. So at that time, this informer, the ringleader, publicly asserted that the sexual assault on those women was so severe and their wounds were so deep that they could hardly walk. And they had like bloody, I'm just going to tell you what it says. They had a bloody discharge, they could hardly walk. However, when the case was moved to court, the attorneys for Providence gave a different statement. And they basically said, we have CCTV, we have footage of these women who came out of the room, okay? And it shows the two women coming out of the room smiling, not like victims, and they're walking normally. They don't look uncomfortable at all. And they kind of continued to highlight the testimonies given by one of the plaintiffs in the court, and they said, more than anything, we need to pay attention to the fact that one of these women who filed the suit as co-plaintiff and initially claimed that she was sexually assaulted declared in court that she committed perjury and she withdrew her suit, right? So this was the third girl, right? And basically came to the court with her mom, reversed her statements that she had given to the police and the prosecutor's office and completely denied the assault allegations, even though the court warned her, if your testimony differs from the contents of the complaint, you'll be penalized, right? Because it's perjury, right? And this woman basically says, I don't care. Even if I'm penalized, I was not sexually assaulted, right? And then the fourth person who filed the suit wasn't raped or sexually assaulted either at all. But incited by the informer, she filed a false suit and has given false testimonies until now. So basically, she's also saying the same thing is that not only her, but also the fourth girl, like the two that went in, they were incited by the informer. The ringleader was the one that was inciting them to give a false suit and give false testimony until now. So see, this third girl basically ratted out the fourth girl too, right? So already here we see two of the girls committing perjury, and one of them even outing her friend, saying that, hey, guess what? We were incited by the informer. That ringleader told us to do it, right? And they filed a false suit and was giving false testimonies until that time. So now there's two of them already out of the picture, which leads us to the sixth reason, okay? So there's also new evidence that could become a reason for, and remember, this is way back then after the trial, that there's more evidence that came out for a retrial, that it was a mistrial. And they said, in fact, on November 15th, 1999, the informer wrote a letter of self-examination, right? So remember, this ringleader wrote a letter of self-examination in which he said to Sunsenim, I deeply regret that I backstabbed you, defamed you by spreading scandals against you, and caused you a deep wound. This is a letter to Sunsenim, and he even had the letter authenticated before he sent it to Sunsenim, right? And basically sent Sunsenim two letters of apology on March 17th and on July 21st of 2005, okay? So this is like just three years before the trial. He already wrote two letters in the same year, basically apologizing for what he did. And part of his letters read, "I apologize that I have defamed and insulted you until now out of misunderstanding. I apologize once again that for the past 6 years, I and the members of the group," right, which is anti-Sunsteam, "have misunderstood you, so we have slandered and insulted you." And the letter was handwritten by the ringleader himself, including his seal and his photo. So if you think about this, why wouldn't there be a mistrial, right? That's why, guys, when you think about this, the more and more you listen to this, the more and more you realize the deep shimjung of God and why this was so terrible back then. And this same ringleader is coming back again, right? So think about this. If you look at everything in conclusion, the testimonies in the courtroom reveal, like to a degree, like not to a degree, to a great degree, was that this ringleader was demanding settlement money, and it's necessary for the court to cool-headedly examine and investigate whether or not this ringleader deliberately created the case while controlling the plaintiffs and almost managing them behind the scenes for the purpose of getting money, right? And when you look at the reasoning why the case involving Sunstein went off to a suspicious direction, basically, it seems that the ringleader was taking advantage of the nature of the case, you know, sexual assault and rape, which, you know, which the complaint has to be filed by the victims, and he managed those who claimed to be victims and prompted them to sue Sunstein, which is exactly what's happening right now. And without letting them know, he didn't even let those 4 women know, but demanded a big sum, $2 million, right? And he didn't even tell the other girls about it. He demanded $2 million, right? And he might have planned to basically lead the case to an agreement. And once he got paid $2 million, they would have withdrawn the legal action using the law of no punishment against the victim's intent, right? So, you know, this is something that we have to understand is this is in a real journal in Korea called Civil Government. Someone following this case from 11 years even before the trial. And we see 6 different reasons that kind of lead to all these difficulties happening. Right? So when you look at this, you're like, what the heck just happened? And this is like total, like this is injustice more than anything else. And we have to be those that realize, yeah, this is how much this is what God's deep shimjung is like. And if we don't understand this story really well, we're actually going to be, we can't fully recognize and understand the deep shimjung of God, especially this week, when it comes to this ridiculousness from the same ringleader for this same thing that's happening right now, okay? So, you know, that is kind of like what I want to talk about so that everyone understands, you know, this is the deep shimjung that's happening at this time, understanding what is happening, what Sunsteam's going through right now, and these are all ex-members and stuff like that too. Like, how, can you imagine? That's like having your own children come against you. Like, you can't fully hate them. You can't like kill them or anything. Well, you know, you can't do anything bad against. They're your own children. They were people that you love so much. So I really hope that through this, we're able to understand it at a much deeper level. Okay, so that is the last thing for today. Hope you really were able to think more deeply about the situation going on right now. And I hope that all of us too can really be able to understand it at a much higher level, the level of the Lord's shimjung at this time. All right, so that is the end of the last segment. Hope you guys had a really good time on today's podcast. Everyone have an amazing and awesome Tuesday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly, so let's realign. Just listen and fill your mind.